We're designed to work in partnership with willing landowners to identify and implement creative local solutions to address pressing local environmental problems. Today, we are here to talk specifically not about an environmental problem, but about a civic engagement problem and about the unique partnership that King Conservation District has formed to provide King County voters an opportunity to address that problem. Access to ballots and the ability to cast a ballot are key barriers to increased voter participation. And participation matters in all elections, including Conservation District supervisor elections. In a recent editorial, our county executive talked about the need and the ability of King County to take bold action, to lead by example, to address the health of Puget Sound. Washington State and King County elections have already shown bold leadership in adopting vote by mail for all Washington elections. King County elections has shown bold leadership in offering online ballot access for military and disabled voters. Today, in partnership with King County Elections and Democracy Live, we are taking another bold step to improve ballot accessibility and increase voter participation by providing online ballot access for the King Conservation District's election to all registered voters in the King County Conservation District service area. Through this partnership with King County elections, King County voters, regardless of location or ability, will be able to access and cast their ballot from a smartphone, a tablet, a computer, or any other smart-enabled device, be it in their home, in their neighbor's home, or with their friends, or in private. Second only to increase participation is the need for security. KCD looked at several alternatives and ultimately selected Democracy Live because their system results in the creation of a paper ballot. For every vote that is cast, there will be a paper ballot that will be reviewed and verified and counted by King County Elections. There will be a signature that will be reviewed, verified before that ballot is counted. Our county council has shown extraordinary leadership in taking action to address the impacts of climate change in our region. Our county executive has shown extraordinary leadership in embracing the need to address the crisis that is the health of Puget Sound and the orcas who call it home. Today, together, we are taking an extraordinary step to address civic engagement and voter participation. I'm pleased to pass the microphone to my colleagues who will be able to speak to you in more detail about the elements of this approach, and I look forward to hearing from everyone and to everyone participating and voting in this historic election. And I'll turn it over to County Executive Constantine.
Well, thank you, Bea, and thanks to all of you for joining us as we take another big step in King County to making voting as easy as possible. Making voting open, making it accessible is not a new idea for us. We led the way with free postage for all ballots. We led the way with pushing for automatic and for same-day voter registration. And today, we are taking the next step, leading in election innovation and accessibility with mobile voting. It's the first time this technology has been available to the general public anywhere in the United States. Along with other advances we've made to open voter registration and voting to every eligible voter, mobile voting could very well be the next frontier. Because we know that when more people participate, our democracy is healthier, it's stronger. By going to mobile voting for this King Conservation District election, we will expand participation. We'll provide an easy and simple option for everyone who has access to a tablet, phone, or other device to have their voice heard. As we grapple with the challenges of pollution and climate change, the King Conservation District is helping to promote healthy resource use, helping to promote healthy agriculture, helping to promote a healthy environment. They are a critical partner, and their work is important, and the participation of the people of King County is critical to that work. I want to thank King County Elections and Elections Director Wise for their ability to seamlessly and efficiently and effectively integrate this new, safe, secure system of voting and to bring it to scale. While a lot of other parts of our nation seem to be focused on finding ways to disenfranchise eligible voters and erode democracy, I am proud that King County is yet again at the center of pioneering a new approach, a new technology to make voting easier and more accessible for all. I want to congratulate the King Conservation District for taking the lead on this innovation. Thank you.
I'd like to introduce Sheila Nix, the president of Tusk Philanthropies, one of our partners in this venture.
Hi, I'm Sheila Nix. As Bea said, I'm the president of Tusk Philanthropies, and we have been working with jurisdictions around the country to make it easier to vote. So we're really excited about working with Bea and the county here, and we feel like, just like the executive said, more voters means better participation and better outcomes. We've been working since 2018, so this isn't the first time we've done this, for military and overseas voters, for voters with disabilities, and now for a larger group of voters in the Conservation District. Our goal is to improve turnout across the board. We work with, Democrats, Republicans, statewide officials, county officials, any innovative election office that is interested in trying this. We provide the support. We have security testing done by independent security agency for potential vendors. So Democracy Live and others have had very, very high standards on security. And the big goal, too, is given low participation right now, especially in local elections and primary elections, we want to have things ready for young people. People who are 10 to 14 years old today, when they begin to vote in 4 and 8 years, they've grown up doing everything on their phones. That is just how they participate in society. And we need to meet voters where they are and have this technology ready and secure and available so that we can continue to grow participation in elections around the country. So thank you to everyone for working with us on this, and we're really excited to see the increased turnout this year, and happy to take any questions at the end. Thank you.
I'd like to introduce Rachel Malloy, an associate supervisor for the King Conservation District.
Hello, I'm Rachel Malloy, again, Associate Supervisor with King Conservation District. I was invited to join the board because of expertise in climate change and involvement with communities that take climate action and address the issue on the ground. King County has been at the forefront of planning for climate impacts, guided by best-known science. As climate risks increase regionally, we see some of that in the outward response and planning in our farm flood programs, flood drainage programs, in increasing coastal armoring, and newly constructed wet weather treatment stations to mitigate system overflows. Because of this focus, King Conservation District works to empower landowners and cities as they too build in resiliency and adaptations, whether that be by guarding sequestration power and water aquifers in our forests and wetlands, or in early fire preparedness to reduce risks and minimize post-fire mudslides or runoff. Our local food security is rooted in our healthy soils and viable agriculture, bringing with it crop resiliency to heat waves and weather extremes. In partnership with the conservation districts, we all have a role to play in how we collectively address mitigation in the coming decades, especially among new generations of landowners, land stewards, and voters. This election comes at a critical time for our region, a time of immense pressure from growth and development, and the Board of Supervisors oversees the work of the Conservation District to set broad policy goals for the organization. This voluntary stewardship model relies on incentive-based practices that protect critical areas and encourages cooperation among diverse stakeholders. We are poised to model for the nation how to build a collective climate response. Although the KCD does not impact public policy in the same way that the county, the city, or the state elected officials do, we do have the ability to make lasting, meaningful change in the King County communities served by King Conservation District. By increasing awareness, by providing tools and pathways to take action, we collaboratively find innovative solutions to the shared challenges ahead, and together, we're ready.
Thank you, Rachel. Great. 4 minutes away. Okay. So I will now introduce Shannon Murphy, the Executive Director of Washington Conservation Voters, who will talk to us about the importance of conservation work in King County and this election.
Thank you. Hello, my name's Shannon Murphy. I'm the president of Washington Conservation Voters and serve on the executive committee of Washington Environmental Council. Our two organizations work to protect, restore, and sustain Washington's environment for all and ensure our democracy is strong and vibrant. King Conservation District plays a vital role in our mission, from protecting salmon habitat to providing opportunities for public education to reinforcing the sustainable stewardship of our forests and natural spaces. We are so proud to have partnered with King Conservation District on important work to create better sustainable forest practices and pollution mitigation in our streams and waterways that provide vital salmon habitat. This is a critical time for leadership. Collaboration between government, nonprofits, community members can help us balance growth with the protection of our natural resources and health of our communities. Right now, the Puget Sound region is losing an average of over 800 acres of forests each year. Salmon have declined 90% from historical levels, all while our region needs to find smarter ways to support our growing population. We know our environment is directly linked with the health of our communities, and we know that our communities deserve access to nature, clean water, and healthy food. Conservation districts allow communities to really see the important impact their vote has on their daily lives. This election is important. We can elect commissioners who will strive to protect our natural resources, mitigate the impacts of climate change in all our communities, and provide tools and resources for everyone to get involved in their backyards. We know that our democracy is stronger and our environment wins when more people vote. Thank you.
Wonderful. I'd like to introduce now Anna Zieverts. She is the Director of Rooted in Rights, Disability Rights Washington, and she will talk to us about the accessibility aspect of this approach to voting.
Hello. Yeah, sorry, I'm a little out of breath. I just ran up the hill from the courthouse. Whew. Should have taken there's a tunnel, I think.
Yeah.
Yes. So yes, Anna Zieverts, I'm the program director of Rooted in Rights. We're an advocacy program of Disability Rights Washington. And previous to this role, I worked for a number of years for the ACLU working on voter suppression issues. And so voting and voting rights is an issue very near and dear to my heart. And so we're really excited to learn about this new accessible online voting option. We think it's great to have more options for people for whom filling out a paper ballot isn't an accessible option. We want to make sure that we preserve as many different kinds of ways for people to be able to vote as possible, because it's our folks with disabilities who have the hardest time often being able to vote. It's folks who are low income, who are poor, whose voices often aren't counted in our political process, and we want to make sure that that can happen. And so we're excited to see how this works for our community, and if it is a success, to see it duplicated other places.
Thank you so much for coming.
Yeah.
Great. And now I believe we have Brian Finney, who is the founder and president of Democracy Live, and he is actually going to give us a real-time demonstration of how this technology works. So
Indeed.
Take it away, Brian.
Thank you, Bea. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Brian Finney. I'm the president and founder of Democracy Live. Seattle-based Democracy Live. We have 2 locations here in King County. I'd like to introduce Felicia Ehrlich, who'll be driving the train for us here today as I walk you through the demonstration. But just some brief background. Democracy Live has been helping to support jurisdictions around the country in over 500 different jurisdictions, counties, states, localities for the last decade in nearly 1,000 elections to help provide accessible, secure balloting for voters that are overseas, in the military, voters with disabilities. And so what you're going to be seeing here today, much of it has been proven in nearly 1,000 elections around the country over the last decade. We've worked initially with the University of Washington Center for Technology and Disabilities to make sure that we have a fully accessible experience for any voter, regardless of disabilities, be able to access their ballot. When you go to around the country, and you have different laws. Many laws require multiple languages. And so, in fact, right now in the state of California, we're going live with something very similar to this. And those counties in California, as an example, require 9 different languages. So Khmer and Cambodian and Tagalog, and a whole array of different languages. Well, the future of voting for, as Sheila mentioned, the 14-year-olds today, their language is mobile. That's their language. And most elections jurisdictions do a fantastic job of ensuring that you have full accessibility and the full array of different languages that are out there. But the real language for our children and our grandchildren, it's the mobile experience. It's the language of mobility. And that's the expansion in voting, what we believe, for the future of voting in this country. So what I'm going to do today is walk you through briefly a demonstration. Again, everything that you're seeing here, much of it has already been proven in many, many elections around the country, certified by independent laboratories in multiple states. The unique thing about this particular election, it's the largest mobile election in the history of the country. And so voters are going to be able to access their ballot, and then they're going to be able to sign their name on their smart pad and then return the ballot electronically. That is what is unusual about this particular election and very, very powerful as a template for the future of democracy. So with that, Felicia, we're going to start walking you through the site here. And this is available to, if you're a registered voter, we hope you get out there and vote today. This is available to any King County registered voters, voters in the King Conservation District. And the process here is that you're going to be able to log in through a link that's on the King Conservation District website, on the King County District website. If you want the link directly, feel free to email info@democracylive.com, and we'll be happy to send you a link so you can go ahead and vote yourself. But again, let's step back a little bit. And this is a secure portal. It is the same portal that we've been using for over a decade now to be able to deliver ballots to military personnel and to voters with disabilities, and replacement ballots here in Washington State. I run a voting company. I lost my ballot last time, but I was able to go online and access this solution and still be able to be fully enfranchised with the vote. So many different ways of utilizing this, but for us in this particular election, how critically important it is to support the King Conservation District, to be able to get more turnout. We just heard how important environmental concerns are here in Puget Sound and King County, and yet we have a small fraction of the voters that are participating in this critical election. We all pay into this King Conservation District. We should have our voices heard. And that's the goal, that's the intent, that's the catalyst for this election. So what you see here, when you go on that link, you're going to come back to this secure portal. This portal has the portal itself, we team with Amazon AWS to make sure that the security of the portal, the same portal that's been approved by multiple federal agencies. This application in this portal has been reviewed by independent federal laboratories. This portal has been reviewed by multiple states for security and accessibility. So you're going to click the link, you're going to come back, you're going to identify yourself to make sure you got the right ballot. Now in this case, there's only one ballot, but this is the way that you're going to be identified to make sure that you've got the right ballot. So what happens here, when you put in your first, last, and date of birth, then you hit continue, it's going to bring up your ballot. Now what's really important about this is that, again, we've been working with members of the Council of the Blind, members of the Independent Living Centers, a whole array of different disabilities. So everything you see here, you can actually hear if you have a certain screen reader or different input devices. So again, what we're trying to do is expand the franchise to all voters, including the 25 to 30 million voters in this country that cannot see, hold, or mark a ballot. So accessibility for voters with disabilities, for the younger population, for all voters. So you've identified yourself. You're now going to bring up your specific ballot. In this case, we have kind of a mock ballot. Who doesn't love Santa Claus? We're going to vote for Santa Claus here, I think. Go ahead, Felicia. And again, you're going to be able to be accessing your ballot. You're navigating your way through the ballot. You can mark the ballot. Go ahead, Felicia. Marking. I'm not looking. Privacy. You can go all the way through the ballot here. Now, what we're trying to do is bring the same experience that voters have. Typically, now in Washington State, we vote primarily by mail, but in other locations throughout the country, and keep in mind, there are 200,000 different voting locations in this country, serving close to 200 million voters. And what you're seeing here, it's a secure portal to be able to deliver this ballot, right? I want to back up a little bit and remind everybody here that by federal law, there's a requirement that voters around the world, overseas and military voters, must get an electronic ballot delivered to them. And outside of a solution like this, which Washington State is already using and here in King County, most of the jurisdictions in this country, they are emailing ballots back and forth to comply with the federal law. They're taking an attachment, they're emailing a ballot, and they're transmitting it to the Green Zone in Iraq, or to some outpost in Afghanistan, or a scientist in Antarctica, right? They're emailing these ballots. It may be the least secure method of transmitting ballot information and ballots. And so that's why the secure portal is an upgrade beyond emailing attachments back and forth. So security and accessibility. So Felicia's gone through her ballot here. By the way, if you try to overvote, you're going to be warned, oh, can't do that. You don't want to spoil your contest, right? So we built into the logic to make sure that voters don't accidentally overvote and maybe spoil that contest. Full enfranchisement. Okay? You go back, you've done voting, or you've completed marking your ballot, you hit continue. At this point, you get a summary screen. You get a second chance to go ahead and review to make sure that your selections were marked accurately. Everything looks good. You can go ahead and, before you do that, I do want to point out once again, you're going to hear this a lot, but you can have a whole array of different input devices. You can have a sip and puff device. You can have a little tactile input. Now, voters that have Parkinson's, or maybe they're paralyzed, maybe they're totally blind, they can use whatever they use at home to go to Facebook or go to Amazon to be able to navigate through this ballot. So again, accessibility is a key part of the DNA of this application. All right. We actually were informed by voters, by GIs out in Afghanistan, saying, you know what, thank you so much. Because when I'm in some outpost out there, and I'm having to wait for my ballot to be snail mailed to me, or emailed to me, and God forbid it doesn't get broken into, we want to make sure that every voter, and if you're fighting for our right to vote, you're fighting for our democracy, you're on the front lines, that you're fully enfranchised. So the voters are able to log in, they can make sure that they haven't overvoted, they can review that that's how they wanted to vote, and if they're all done confirming the ballot, they hit continue. Now in this case, and this is where it gets, this is the innovation of what King Conservation District is doing and King County Elections with the support of the Tusk Philanthropies. And that is that instead of the way it works today, so if I'm an overseas voter, I'm in the military, I need to, or if I'm in a submarine, if I want to get the ballot back to my county elections office, I have to go print it out, sign it, go find a fax machine on that submarine, right, and transmit that ballot back. Or find a scanner and a printer in that outpost in Afghanistan. So what we're trying to do is remove that barrier to be able to securely return the ballot. And that's how we do it here. So just like we're doing it today, here in Washington State, when you get your ballot, you have to sign your name on that signature page. On what we call OmniBallot, you sign your name. Felicia's going to go ahead and do that. All right, so she's just signing it on her pad, right? Many of us now have these smart devices with pads on it. You can return your ballot now. You're going to go ahead and sign your name. All right. And you're going to hit continue. You're going to put in some identifying, like contact information. So if something happens with your signature, right, the county will be able to contact you to bring attention that your signature may not have been verified. So you put in your contact information. All right. Now at this point, what Felicia has done, she has marked her ballot securely in the cloud environment, this secure portal that's been used in over 1,000 elections. All right. She's been able to sign her name just like we do today. Now she's going to view her signature. Okay, everything looks good. Now she's going to view her ballot. So all that we're doing here, we're looking at the exact same ballot and signature that King County Elections is going to download from that secure portal. Okay, so we're not uploading anything, we're not emailing anything. We are just marking in the secure cloud, and then it's going to be downloaded from to the King County Elections office. And they're going to print out those ballots. They're going to print out the signature pages. Okay. So if everything looks good, now she's confirmed that the signature looks good, that her ballot selections were how she wanted to vote. At this point, she's going to go ahead and hit submit. Okay. Now, at that point, the ballot is, the King County Elections is alerted that a ballot package is ready to be downloaded. So there was no uploading, there was no attachments. You marked it in the secure cloud. It's the exact same ballot and signature page that King County is going to download, which now they can. They have an email saying a ballot has now been processed and is ready for download. At that point, they download the signature. If and only if the signature is approved, right, and it matches, just like they do today. We have 1.3 million voters in King County. King County is the largest vote-by-mail jurisdiction in the country. They are experts. They are the foremost leaders in matching signatures. That's how we all vote if you live in King County, right? We mail in a ballot. The security, the validation is on the signature. So we have the exact same process today that you validate the signature. We match that against what the signature that's on file. And that's the key verification step, just like we do it today. Okay? One final thing. We went through the process of marking the ballot online and then transmitting the ballot back electronically with a signature. That's just an option. If the voter, for whatever reason, wants to just simply print out the ballot and sign their name on the kitchen table, just like today, they can do that. The whole concept here is to expand accessibility and increase and enhance security. So with that, I might have monopolized the day here so far. But thank you, B.
Right. No, thank you, Brian. As Brian said, submitting your ballot electronically is one of 4 options that voters will have in the King Conservation District election. The other 3 are to download their selections, print their ballot, and mail it through the regular post to King County Elections. And the ballot packet that is produced, if the voter chooses that option, has all of the instructions. It has the secure cover page, and voters can submit their ballots that way. We are also making available all 70 of the drop boxes that King County Elections has positioned around the county. So a voter could choose to deposit their ballot in one of those secure drop boxes, and those boxes are monitored and managed and collected by King County Elections certified elections officials. And then finally, on the official election day, which is February 11th, there will be a polling station at the King Conservation District office in Renton that will be open from 9 a.m. to 8 p.m. We will have a number of different tablets available so that people can cast their vote at that time. And again, all 4 of the options will be available to them as well at that time. So those are the basics, and I believe we'll just open it up for questions. Yes, ma'am.
I just was struck by the fact that all you need to know is the name and the birth date of the person. It's not the most, confidential information. A lot of people have that on social media. I realize you have to have a signature that matches at the end, but has there been any issue with people in the other places that you've used these, voting on behalf of other people?
So the key here is just like today.
Get behind the microphone.
In King County, the security and the validation is based on the signature. So on the inbound of the ballot, the signature page comes back with a signature on it. The King County staff, again, the foremost leaders in this country on matching up signatures, is going to verify that the signature matches, and only if it matches does the ballot get processed for tabulation. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I just wondered if, it's just a pretty low bar. I just thought there'd be more of like a password or something.
No, that's not our credentialing or security component. It is just an identifier to identify the right ballot with the right voter.
I would also just add that unfortunately King County Elections Director Julie Weiss is not able to be here today. She was testifying in Olympia, but her office has done a number of security tests related to verified signatures, and she'd be happy to speak on that. I'm happy to connect you.
How do you respond to Secretary of State Kim Wyman put out a statement about this? Now, of course, she does not oversee this election because it's a special purpose district, but she's very concerned. She says the system is vulnerable. From what she has heard from the FBI, Department of Homeland Security, she's very concerned about, she's trying to roll back electronic ballot return methods and said that it's too risky for voting and could leave voter information and electronic infrastructure impaired. That this is the wrong direction to be going at a time when we're really concerned about cybersecurity?
So we believe that you should be focusing on improving voter accessibility and improving security at the same time. And as Brian has mentioned, this system is more secure than people emailing their ballots back. So we're improving the security. We've done probably 7 jurisdictions using some kind of mobile voting in the last 2 years. And we worked very closely with the Secretary of State, Mac Warner, who's Republican from West Virginia. He was the first one who tried this. He's if you follow Secretary of State, he's very involved in security issues with Homeland Security. He's a liaison for the Secretaries of State. And so he's a big fan of this. They're going to do it again for 2020 for their primary and their presidential elections. And so I understand that people may have some different positions on this, but we really believe with all the security testing and everything that's done, and the fact that there's been 14 elections in 7 different jurisdictions with no problems, that, people who say you can't do it, I think the best proof is we did it and it was safe. And I should mention, too, if you want this level of detail, that all the pilots, and including this one, will have post-election audits. They are the one, especially in Denver, you can watch it on Facebook Live, but it was open to the public. Anyone who wanted to participate in the audit could. It allowed you to be able to match all the different votes. Now, maybe as this scales, it's not possible to check every vote, but at this time it is possible. And so we've had great success. It really hasn't been an issue. And I think the voters really like it, and so you just really need to focus on both. In Denver, they had a 100% increase in turnout among military and overseas voters, and then they were able to survey all the voters that used it. And as Brian mentioned, especially when you're dealing with voters overseas in deployed military areas, this is a much more secure system. It's safer, and it's so much easier. And all the people who voted using the mobile voting app said it was better, and they didn't want to go back to the old way. So I think we have to work on not looking at this as one thing or the other, and I think there is that tendency. I mean, we really are in a polarized democracy right now, in part because of the very low turnout, especially in local elections or primary elections, and we really have to try to figure out a way to do both.
I have a question for you, Bee. So you're saying you want to make it voting more accessible, but wouldn't the easier thing for King County Conservation District be, since you actually have to request a ballot, to just mail everybody who's in the district a ballot?
Mailing everyone in our service area, which comprises all of King County, unincorporated King County, and 34 of the cities in King County. That is a service area of approximately 1.2 million voters, and the cost to do a mail ballot election runs between $1 and $3 a ballot. We run an election every year. Our total annual operating budget is $8 million. If we were to utilize a vote-by-mail system, we would be expending up to 35% of our annual operating budget on an election. Philosophically, we would like to be on a general ballot. We need to figure out a way that we can do that in a cost-effective manner.
So how much is this costing you?
This is going to cost us about $300,000 in total.
And just a quick follow-up.
Yeah.
Just on your question about Secretary Wyman. Secretary Wyman has been a leader and is a leader in this country for elections, and I very much look forward to working with her in more detail and showing her the solution in broader context, and look forward to collaborating with the Office of Secretary of State.
So if I had a bunch of time on, sorry.
You had your question earlier, I'm sorry.
Yes,
Yeah.
so the committee tasked with investigating the Russian meddling into elections and the Senate level had suggested that states should resist pushes for online voting. Were there any other solutions to fixing voter turnout considered before thinking about going online?
The Conservation District's Board of Supervisors have looked at a number of different alternatives over the years. They actually used a different online system in 2011 before I came to the Conservation District. They've also looked at deploying numbers of polling stations around the county. None of them have actually generated any kind, they haven't really moved the needle in any kind of measurable way. And so after thoughtful consideration and careful consideration and extensive discussions with King County Elections, our Board of Supervisors felt comfortable that participating in a pilot of this nature would not only help us achieve our goal of increasing voter turnout, but it would also allow us to partner in a pilot that could yield real fruit for voter participation and civic engagement in general, and particularly for communities who have historically been disenfranchised. So,
Just a quick follow-up to that.
Yeah.
Nomenclature might matter. This is,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, yeah. Nomenclature matters, and this is not an online voting solution, right? This is simply securing the ballot delivery and then the ballot return. This is not you're tabulating the ballot totals, online. This is just an improvement over emailing a ballot and an attachment or faxing a ballot back and forth. But all the tabulation, the actual counting of the ballots, is done on paper the same way that's done today. And so you can go back and do a hand physical recount if necessary or required.
So if I had a whole lot of time on my hands, could I plug in somebody's name and birth date and vote 1,000 times? Is there something that, or if somebody did that to me, would I get locked out and I couldn't vote?
There, right. So the system is set up so you can only vote once. And sort of like today, if somebody took your ballot, right, and you marked it, and then you sent it back in, even though maybe you nefariously signed somebody else's name, they would catch it on the back end because that signature wouldn't match. And so the process, the way that system is set up today, you can only vote once, and the signature has to match on the back end.
So if somebody did that, if somebody put my name and my birth date in and submitted it, and it's false, and I went to this, would I be able to vote?
You'd be notified to contact the county, and the county would process that, do a little bit of investigating, make sure that you match up, and then activate the ballot back for you. Again, very similar to what happens today. If the ballot came back in today, right, they would catch that on the inbound.
Right, but nobody can just get my ballot from physically at my house if you mail it to me, versus just going on the computer and saying, oh, okay, I'll vote for it.
Right. I mean, right. The ballots are available, kind of, you mail it, and I'm a strong believer in vote by mail. But if you have a family of 5, right, you got ballots all over the place sometimes. And so, again, the point is that you can only vote once. And then you would contact the county and say, hey, wait a minute, I didn't vote. And yet it's showing that somebody voted already.
Yes.
Everything you do online has a digital footprint, right? Your IP address, things that you do can be traced back to your personal computer. How can you guarantee that these votes will remain anonymous?
Brian?
Yeah, so the ballot marking part of it itself, it's when you log in, you are logging in as first, last, date of birth. But there is a kind of a digital break between marking the ballot and your name. It is absolutely anonymized. And we can go back and kind of show you the digital, as you mentioned, the footprint on how that's done. And then importantly, on the inbound, the person who is verifying the signature must be a different person than the person that downloads the ballot. So they log in, username, first, last, as their username and password. That person who verifies the signature, just like they do it today, is different than the person who opens up the envelope and watches and looks at your ballot. So it's the same process on the inbound.